Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable O'Connor and Honourable Whip for getting this question across. Mr. Speaker, a critical component of Ministry of Agriculture's Strategic Development Plan 2019-23, and I urge the Honourable members on the other side to read the strategic plan, because I see a number of other questions that are emanating from the other side demonstrate clear lack of understanding about the vision and the strategic objectives of the Ministry of Agriculture. Had they got some time to get a copy of our strategic plan, which is on our homepage, read it, I think it will make sense if we can put better questions across the floor. So, Mr. Speaker, we would want to rehabilitate our livestock sector. Over the years, the livestock sector has been suffering due to loss of genetic attributes. You name it, whether it's beef cattle, dairy cattle, goat and sheep. Over the years, due to inbreeding, we have lost the original genetic traits of the breeds that we have. There are very few farms you will see they have the original breeds. And we, Ministry of Agriculture, we do hold original genetic material. But Mr. Speaker, when it goes to the farm, then again the farmers, due to not changing the breeder, whether it's breeder bull or breeder sheep or breeder goat or breeder fowl or breeder duck, there's a lot of inbreeding happening over time, and therefore they lose the genetic material. So, Mr. Speaker, also what we would want to do is to bring in new, improved genetic material. Breeding of livestock takes years. But unfortunately, we can't bring in live animals because some of the diseases that are there from the supply country, we don't have it. And biosecurity is very particular to ensure that to take advantage of the island nature of our country, we ensure that unless we're 100% sure, and if there's no other alternative, then we take certain measures to ensure that that particular animal or plant species being brought does not bring in that particular disease. So, Mr. Speaker, embryo transfer is a means of bringing in the original genetic material minus the diseases. So, basically, embryo transfer is where you have the developed fertilized egg into an embryo in a test tube, you bring it down, and then you plant it in the receiver, in this case, cows, and when the cow gets pregnant and gives birth, you have this original breed of that particular animal, whether it's whatever the breed. So, Mr. Speaker, this particular program started from 2018, where embryos were brought in from Australia through a funding from the Australian government for different breeds of livestock. Dairy cattle breed, beef cattle breed, which I'm going to explain in a second, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the first stage of the embryo development work actually in Australia, where they got the fertile eggs and then got it fertile and then got into embryo, and it was brought over to Fiji with full biosecurity compliance. The breeds that were brought was for dairy cattle, so special high-yielding breeds for dairy cattle and beef cattle. Sanapol for beef cattle, brown Swiss for dairy, Wagyu and Roadmaster for beef cattle, Mr. Speaker. Carefully selected for its good performance in terms of heat stress, ability to withstand high heat stress, growth and development in yield, carcass content, reproduction, and meat quality. So these were the criteria that was utilized to select this genetic material for these particular 4 breeds. Mr. Speaker, but Mr. Speaker, we are carefully processing the plan of releasing these breeds to ensure that we pass it to those farms which are TB and brucellosis free. It's no use passing the genetic material or a live animal that we have spent so much of money to pass it to a farm which will again get infected. So simultaneously, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of work been undertaken for the first time ever, where the ministry has 4 full time qualified vets, Mr. Speaker. We never had that number of vets leading a team of livestock officers and para-vets to test and undertake the required work to determine whether a farm can be classified as TB and brucellosis free. So, Mr. Speaker, the Australian Reproductive Technology Company was hired through the Australian government grant to work with the ministry for this particular process, also develop local capacity. So, Mr. Speaker, to establish an elite nucleus head of tropically adapted cattle in Fiji, 300 embryos were imported for beef and dairy breeds as part of the initial program. These 300 embryos were then transferred into local synchronized cattle at government stations in 4 phases. A total of 122 calves were born with the Embryo Transfer Technology with a success rate of about 40%. So, Mr. Speaker, generally the success rate around the world for embryo transfer is around 40 to 60. And so we have a success rate of 40, which we are not within the range, Mr. Speaker. So to date, Mr. Speaker, there is 64 pure-bred Senapole, 42 pure-bred brown Swiss. So Senapole for beef cattle and brown Swiss for dairy cattle, Mr. Speaker. So the breeding, our breeding center is also being established and is expected to be completed this year. So, Mr. Speaker, we would want to, with the completion of the breeding center, we want to do this program here in Fiji, do the embryo here. It's easier to transport embryos and implant in cows outside Vitilevu rather than transporting the whole animal. We also now have restrictions of transferring animals within Fiji, Mr. Speaker, because certain areas are TB free. For example, Koro Island, our first test, Mr. Speaker, of entire, a representative sample of cattle in Koro Island reveals that they are TB free. And we want to maintain it that way. So we are now put stringent measures of any animal movement into Koro Island, Mr. Speaker, because we want Koro Island to remain TB free. And then if that's the case, we can then also have another standby place where we could put these exotic breeds that we have got, so that in any case, in any time, if these breeds get infected at one of our stations, we have got backup plan. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the continuous process, and the second set of embryo transfers was recently completed in April using Wagyu and Drought Master. So we are getting these 2 other beef cattle breed. A total of 40 embryos were implanted in our local recipient and 2 government stations, and we are expecting that at least we will meet the range of 40 to 60% success rate. So, Mr. Speaker, the ministry has developed a nucleus head for these beef cattle breeds, and we would want to disseminate them, but there are 3 ways of disseminating. One is, of course, the breeder bulls be given to TB-free farms. Number 2 is through embryo transfer. So at the end of this year, we can do our own embryos in test tubes and implant it in the cows throughout Fiji, easier to transport. And number 3 is through artificial insemination. So the only issue with artificial insemination is that it will be what you call in genetic terms F1, meaning we will be taking the breeder bull sperm and planting in a cow, so it won't be the pure breed. So at least it will be 50-50, Mr. Speaker said. So, Mr. Speaker, we are well on track in terms of improving the genetic material, and we have plans for for example, we're doing similar thing with goat and sheep, but not through embryo transfer, but through dissemination of breeder sheep and breeder goat, the Boer goat, Mr. Speaker. So thank you.